Don, a happy new year to you. Unfortunately, we're beginning our segment on a rather depressing note. Alarming numbers with this jump in homelessness population in the United States. Does it surprise you that we're seeing such an alarming increase in the richest country in the world?
First of all, thank you for having me. It is not a surprise to those of us that work in the sector and work on advocacy. There's a couple of really important factors that contributed. Family homelessness, as you said, grew almost 40%. The reason behind that is our housing costs have continued to rise up to about 18% year over year. And that is way too much of an increase for people to absorb. And also, we have the after effects of the COVID-19 initiatives that provided rental assistance and eviction prevention.
You talked about lack of affordable housing, also lack of good paying jobs. About half of the people, from what I understand in this report, experiencing homelessness are actually working. They do have jobs.
That is correct. The cost of housing is out of reach for most Americans. There's a report entitled "Out of Reach" that looks at what a person would have to earn to be able to access housing across the country. And not one city in the entire country can you afford to pay for housing at 30% of your income, which is the adequate level. If you have a minimum wage job, for instance, you'd have to work somewhere between 80 and 100 hours a week.
Another interesting aspect of this report, I'm going to read my notes here, the migrant influx also made a difference here, contributed to a spike in these numbers. But what I found stunning is that how broad, Donald, the challenge really is, because even states like Kansas, Utah, Idaho, Alaska saw a big surge in homeless population, places that normally are not dealing with an influx of migrants.
I do think that in one respect that issue was overstated. I don't think it's really accurate to use immigration as a reason for this increase in the numbers. And here's why I say that. Some of the cities that have that issue that Kansas doesn't have, Denver, Colorado, one of the places that had one of the highest influxes of immigration, actually had a reduction in homelessness. Los Angeles, California had a reduction in homelessness. So I think these are two separate issues. I think it's easy to blame immigration. I think it's been blamed way too much. But the truth is, other things have bigger impacts. I think the move towards criminalization is understated, while immigration is overstated in this report.
And very quickly, Donald, before we wrap it up, how much of an issue is also mental illness?
So mental illness, of course, is a factor, but it's not the mental illness. It's the lack of resources to treat people with mental illness. And the same thing with substance abuse, the same thing with people leaving the criminal justice system. It is a system issue, it's a structural issue, and we have to create resources. And we have to make sure that we fund these programs to the level of need, which we've never done.
All right, such an important conversation. We appreciate your take. Donald Whitehead, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.